Good afternoon, and welcome back to the Interface Dungeon. Like all dungeons, they need their monsters and their dungeon masters and masters of monsters. And we have a very special guest. We have Darran from Mind Candy for a quick fireside chat without the fire on how to build your brand. So please welcome Darran.
Perfect, thank you.
On these stalls. So you are Chief Commercial Officer at Mind Candy, best known for Watching Monsters. Could you tell the audience that is slowly growing a little more about yourself and a little more about what you do for the company?
Yeah, no problem at all.
Hello, thanks for coming. Chief Commercial Officer, isn't it brilliant? Tech companies love their titles. So my role is all-encompassing. So I look after our digital relationships. Liaise with the Apples and Googles and Amazons and Tencents of the world, just to make sure our digital product are getting the best distribution it can. But really I found Mind Candy through physical product. My background is working with TV shows and movies and Fox and Lego and all those great brands. My kids are now getting into Simpsons, which is annoying because I used to sell it and I should have kept all the swag that I'm now buying. But I met Michael completely by accident on a Sunday morning. I was just surfing the internet and I came across these funny looking monsters, emailed info@mindcandy and said they look good, I think I can make you some money out of those. Came in dressed in a suit, which again, not being from the tech world, didn't realise that wasn't the right thing to do. And came in, consulted for 7 months and began this journey. But my remit is really to look after monetising everything non-digital. Even though I manage the relationships for our digital products, I don't really dive too much into the user acquisition side of the business, but the flip side of that is actually I do, because physical merchandise and entertainment is a great way of acquiring users without having to tread the paths that everybody else is doing.
The funny little monsters you refer to, we've all seen them, they're all over retail at the moment. It's not just the browser game anymore, there are toys, there's stationery, there are novels, there are sticker books, there are activity, there's a movie. Where did all that begin? How did Mind Candy decide that we're going to make this more than a game, we're going to actually make this a whole franchise, an IP that we can merchandise and license?
Yeah. If you ask Michael about licensing, he won't anymore, thankfully, but he thought it was a very easy thing to do, that people just flock to your door and you sign deals, they make your product, they pay you a royalty and off you go. But we sat around a table and there was a science to the partners we chose and the markets we went into first, and there's a real sequencing, which is, I don't know if anyone's a parent here that's bought Washy Monsters. Yes. I owe you a coffee or a beer. But there was a real science to the fact that we're now 7 years into this brand and we're still relevant. And the reason that is because we didn't burn it fast and hard. We could have signed and produced more merchandise than we did. We said no to probably nearly 100 companies in total who wanted to make Washy merchandise. But I knew from my Pokemon days that would have meant that we had a 2-year life cycle or a 3-year. But we're 7 in, and I was a single guy when I joined Mind Candy. I'm now a dad of 2, and my 4.5-year-old is obsessed with Washy, and it's lovely because it's not through me, because I'm actually having to buy the damn stuff myself when we see it in shops, because that's what he wants. So we chose a path, we chose the right partners, and we all went on a bit of a journey together.
Is that not like a Mind Candy card you can just flash it to and say, look, I already own this, I made this?
God, I wish there was.
Watching Monsters is obviously a prime example of how far a brand can go. A lot of the developers here are obviously looking at getting their game published, getting their game on the market, getting their game funded, something to do with the game. But do you think that more developers should be thinking about their property as a potential franchise? And where does that even start?
Yeah, do you know, it's such a double-edged sword. If you ask Michael that started Mind Candy, he will say at the back of his mind that he had merchandise aspirations for that brand. It certainly wasn't the case when I walked through the door. But what they did is they rebuilt a beautiful digital game. And that was the core. And we focused and doubled down and focused and user tested our digital product. So it was brilliant for our consumer. And then everything else followed. The flip side of that, with our new IP, World of Warriors, merchandise was thought of from day one. Because the company changed from a digital company to now an entertainment company, although some of Mind Candy might not like me for that. But it's a digital entertainment company now. So we baked in very, very early characters, settings, scenes that could potentially become very toyetic later on down the line. And we actually had somebody working with the team as they were building certain elements of the game to just say, actually, if you change that piece in 2 years' time, when you're talking to Walmart, that could change the needle slightly this way. The brilliant thing about digital and apps and the ability is that, in Mind Candy, we spent 2 years building Moshi Monsters, 2 years building World of Warriors, Supercell, Space Ape, all of these brilliant game companies spend a lot of time building brilliant games. The flip side of that, and a brilliant IP which they can then monetize elsewhere should they wish to. The flip side of that is, I can tell you, Flappy Bird, the few companies that have managed to merchandise that, and there are only a few in the world because it's been extremely difficult, can't keep the product in stock. And to my knowledge, that took 2 or 3 days to code. So the character and your love of what you're building has to come first. And then if you've got something that you think can then go on to that next stage, then just bring someone in early who understands merchandising, licensing, and all the rest of that work.
So, getting into the actual specifics of designing the game, and as you said, like the characters, the scene, the settings, the different elements of it that can be merchandised. Where should developers start? What is it that makes good potential merchandise when you're designing a game?
God, that's the holy grail question. Eyeballs. Eyeballs. It all comes down to eyeballs. I mean, I think when you're developing a game, there's no rhyme or reason what's going to be successful. I'm pretty sure the guy Notch and the team at Minecraft didn't envisage that they'd become the best-selling kids book 4 years later globally. Definitely that wasn't on the roadmap when they built that product. So I think that it then comes down to eyeballs. Once you get that penetration of users coming into your ecosystem, things start to flow from there. And your external partners will come on an easier journey with you if they think they're going to get traction and people know about what you're building. And again, with our second IP, we started those conversations at sketch phase with World of Warriors. So I went to America and I pitched the biggest toy companies in the world with sketches on a bit of paper. Now we had a little bit of track record of what we were going to achieve, but I truly believe anyone can do that now, particularly in the merchandising side of things. A lot of those companies don't understand digital. Actually, we're the powerful people now. We were kind of the magicians, the magic masters for a long time. The lack of knowledge of digital, and as consumers, both old and young, moved into this digital space, we're now the kingmakers. These huge companies that have been making plastic for years and years and years want to know our secret sauce, and how can they partner with us earlier. And so there's been a real shift.
So out of the various potential partners, when you're looking at licensing out your IP, looking into potential merchandising, and then you're then looking at so many different sectors, like the toy industry is an entity in itself, the book industry is an entity in itself. Which of these opportunities are kind of easier to approach? Which of them are easier to get into?
None of them. They're all horrible, and they're all cynical, and the closer you get to retail, the cynicism gets higher. I'll tell you a quick story. When I joined Mind Candy, we signed an OK deal as our first deal. We were nothing. No one knew Mind Candy. No one knew Mind Candy at all. They knew Moshi Monsters kind of. And I remember my first meeting with Tesco's. And actually, their foyer is not too dissimilar to this. And that's where you start. And that's where I started. And then they have a lovely atrium, and if you get past the foyer, you get the atrium, and then beholden, you get taken to the meeting rooms upstairs. But I got 5 minutes in the dungeon, which is their foyer, to pitch. And it was that newness of entertainment. I think people look at what we did with Moshi, and they're like, oh, what a great success, wasn't it amazing? But if you peel back the layers, that first meeting with Tesco's lasted 10 minutes. They didn't believe a word I said, because the questions to them was, when's it on TV, when's the movie come out, how much are you spending on television? And I had to try and convince them that actually kids were in a digital environment and they were returning, and they just thought I was a lunatic. And one of the reasons was Disney was a forerunner. Disney's Club Penguin were in the market before us, and strategically Disney chose not to merchandise the brand as heavily as Disney had their other franchises. I'm not too sure the rhyme or reason around that, but it meant that I was on a double back foot, because they said, well, if Disney haven't done this, why should you, and why are you going to work? So we had to strip it all the way back, and we went with a small toy company in Guildford. They took a real punt on us, and then we went to a small retailer in the UK called The Entertainer that had 40 stores, I think, versus Tesco's nearly 3,000. So we went small and steady, and our first shipment of product, 3 months worth of shipment, sold out in 3 days. Excuse me. And then everyone stood up and went, oh, okay, we should look at this.
As you say, Moshi Monsters is primarily a digital property, as with Club Penguin and Minecraft and before all this. But obviously, the vast majority of merchandise, just by the nature of what merchandise is, tends to be physical. What is the advantage? I mean, if you're a developer and you're looking at creating a digital game and you're not going to release it like in retail, you're just looking at releasing it on iOS, Android, Steam, etc. What's the advantage of trying to have some sort of form of physical presence in the world?
Okay, so again, double-edged sword. If you're a developer of a very successful game, merchandising can be viewed and seen as a massive distraction, which I think is why some of the huge games that are in the top 3, 4 grossing games globally receive very little merchandise, because they're concerned that it's a distraction, the team will get sucked into this. Actually, what we found with physical merchandise is it's another touch point to your consumer. It's a touch point to new consumers. With Moshi Monsters, we actually saw our digital presence and our digital engagement. It was creeping up anyway, but it went faster because of this awareness of our consumer to the brand. And we did user testing of our consumers, of how did you find the brand. And it was, oh, I bought the magazine, or I bought the trading cards, or I saw a t-shirt. And it was interesting that these kids were coming into our ecosystem, and our digital churn was shorter than our physical churn. So the users would stay with us physically, collecting and wearing a lot longer. You could also, with Moshi Monsters, that the consumer was a 4 to 9 year old. But a 9-year-old Moshi wasn't cool, particularly if your 5-year-old, 6-year-old brother was in there. But we still sold hundreds of thousands of pairs of pajamas for 9-year-olds because no one's in their bed, so it was still cool to wear. You wanted to wear the product. So for us, it's like our cost per acquisition was lower because it was another way to actually reach our consumer. And we're seeing the same with World of Warriors as our merchandise is starting to come out.
You mentioned earlier that you had hundreds of companies that you actually had to turn down that were pitching like different merchandising. So I mean, how does Mind Candy, and by extension, like any developer looking to do this, how do you choose which opportunities you're going to pursue, what partnerships make sense?
Yeah. There's so many ways to skin the cat. We never did it for financial reasons. We did it for companies that I professionally and personally knew would do the best job, had the best distribution, didn't have a conflict of interest in their portfolio, but most of all, culturally were correct with us. And I think that's why the Minecraft product has done so well. Great toy company in America did a Minecraft product, a company called Jazzwares. And they've been so, they treated it as if it was their own. And I think that's the toy industry. My dad was a second-hand car dealer, and the toy industry is full of them. It's full of people that see your IP, see the potential to maybe make quick money or money over a 3-year product cycle, which is what IP, the average lifespan of an IP. So it's just bringing companies on that are going to go on a full journey with you and invest as well. Because you really want, in those early stages, you want their R&D money. There's no point just taking a check up front for them to sign your IP rights and then they sit on them or they don't develop them, and that's just a travesty.
So out of everything that Washing Monsters have done and has worked with, I mean, like the books, the toys, the clothes, the stationery, the pyjamas, the popular pyjamas behind us, the movie. What would you say there's a particular area that had the most impact that introduced you to a brand new audience, and what advice can you give on attracting that audience?
Yeah, I'm going to say 4. I'll give you 4. So one was our toys. For sure, I mean, we sold over 200 million of these little Washington characters. Again, what that meant is that one of the best examples was I saw some young kids in Pizza Express lining all our characters up, and I looked like a creepy uncle staring across the tables. But it was lovely because other people were going up asking them what they were, because it was really early in our life cycle. The biggest one in terms of reach was McDonald's in America. 30 million toys in a 3-week period in their Happy Meals. It was just phenomenal. And I remember pitching them because their life cycles are 3 years out. So I sold them the Moshi Dream 3 years before we actually executed it. So it was a little bit nerve-wracking. Trading cards because they're cheap, quick to make, and easy to pulp if you get it wrong. So it's actually, the barrier to entry is much lower. And this wasn't a needle mover, but personally for me, Pez dispensers. It was kind of my badge of honour. It made us next to no cash. But to do something iconic with a brand that has iconic status and gives you that real badge of symbol. We're negotiating with something with World of Warriors at the moment, actually. There isn't a monetary play, but it gives the whole franchise and the whole franchise longevity globally a real badge of association on it. So it's kind of picking your battles.
And one more question, and I'll actually open out to the other questions. I think we've got time. So, what would be the most important advice you would give to any developers that are looking at potentially licensing out their IP and planning for merchandise within their long-term strategy?
Come to someone like me or someone in the business, just have a coffee. The other thing about the licensing industry, and it's a really open industry for sharing knowledge, and there's events you can go to, but just email someone in the business that will hook you up with somebody else, and get them in early. Get them in early for their thoughts and their opinions, and if you're already far down the line and you want to go into that route, someone will write a business plan or just steer you in the right direction. So that first deal is so important, because it not only does it set the scene for everything else you're going to do, but it can have a real harm as well. There were some things, I won't name names, but there were some things we did on day 3 with our Moshi licensing that I certainly wouldn't have done on day 180. But again, no one knew us from Adam, so we had to build our portfolio of clients before we got to the McDonald's of the world with that reach. But those foundation blocks are so key.
Are there any questions? We've got time for a couple of questions. You'll be answering those.
Miles from your monitor. I was curious. Every manufacturer we've interviewed in our toys and games coverage has been kind of concerned about the crowding in the licensed industry over the past 3 years or so. Yeah.
Yeah.
For a developer with a specific IP, or a new kind of niche possibly, how did they work around that to avoid being priced out or caught up in an extremely crowded licensed toy industry right now?
Yeah, there's a massive gap in the market. I mean, 80% of sales at retail are done by a handful of people. So there's a real huge, and I've said this numerous places, there's a real gap in the market for helping more indie developers who want to start on this journey. Because the bigger toy companies now are a little bit spooked. There's a lot of people there was a gold rush, a digital gold rush. Angry Birds did their thing, and then you saw this wave from Temple Run to Cut the Rope to there's this just the market was awash with digital IP, and what happened was then retail just got spooked because these things didn't work, and so they said, oh, it's just a flash in the pan. Thankfully, Minecraft then came along, and everyone went, oh, actually, it wasn't a flash in the pan. So there are some really, and actually Alex is here, so Alex is building a website, which he can talk to that man as well, who's building a website to kind of plug one of these gaps and to help indie developers to produce physical merchandise for their fan base. And I think what we have in our power, which we didn't do well enough at Moshi Monsters, was sell directly to our consumer. And we had a captive audience, but then we still gave up a percentage on top of a percentage on top of a percentage to sell through retail. But by doing that, it meant we reached tens of millions of people. So it's, yeah, there's a gap for that, I'm afraid.
Talking about the potential impact of 3D printing, not necessarily now, but maybe in 5 to 10 years' time. Do you see that changing the dynamics, maybe fitting some of that now?
Yeah, 100%. I'm fascinated with 3D printing. I think we're not even scratching the surface. I don't know who was at GDC, but some of the 3D printers there were fantastic. Excuse me. Scale is my biggest challenge with that at the moment. If you think at one stage we were with Moshi, we were selling 30,000 toys a week in one retailer. You need a crap load of 3D printers, and that was just in the UK. Now, if we got into the US, that's 6x what we do in the UK, 180,000 toys. Suddenly the global scale is phenomenal. But I do think at some point those 3D printers, I don't think it's 3D printing farms, I don't think that's correct. I could be wrong, maybe this service is already out there. But I do think there's, again, a gap of syncing printers up globally to fill a gap.
Or it might be something like, you print bespoke heads on mass-produced bodies.
Correct. Or it, you know, it might be, and this might exist if it doesn't, gutted, I should have done it. It might be, I mean, my kids at the moment are obsessed with something called Paw Patrol, which is a thing on Nickelodeon, and there's a certain character in it called Sky that you can't get it in the UK, you can buy it for 40 quid on eBay. And as a dad in the industry, that pains me to do. Now, if I could 3D print that character and know that I could click and collect from a guy around the corner, I'd love to do that. And I think there's a gap in the market of this kind of close proximity 3D printing on demand. I don't know what that looks like. But as a consumer, I'd love someone to come up with it.
Okay, thank you very much, and big round of thanks for Darran.
Cool.